Welcome, everyone. My name is Tony Cockermell, president of Expert Elite World, and also president of the DFW BIM Infrastructure User Group, and also president of Civil CAD Learning Solutions. So today we have our guest. If you have been watching our video podcast, we've been interviewing experts elites across the United States and across the international countries also. So today our guest is Chris. Chris, if you'd like to introduce yourself and what you do at your company.
Sure. My name's Chris Cowgill. I am based out of Charlotte. I moved down here in the last couple of years. I'm from Michigan. Much warmer weather, much more appreciated. But I work for HDR Inc. I'm a senior civil engineer there, although my primary focus is on a lot of site grading stuff, but I'm also in charge of, well, not really in charge of, but assisting with training and bringing up we have a lot of really young staff. So bringing them up to speed on how to use Civil 3D tips, tricks, stuff like that to make them more efficient. That's a lot of my time, a lot of my focus, working on standards, those types of things too. So.
And so how long have you been in the industry then, using Autodesk products?
Well, I started using Autodesk products. I was on R14 in high school. That was in 1999.
Yeah.
So that's when I started, although when I did go to college, they were like on R12.
Yep.
And so obviously I'm all the way up to, we're using 22 at the office. I've been fiddling around with 23.
Yeah.
The new corridor changes in 23.2. I wish we were on 23. It would make life so much easier. But we'll just have to wait till we switch to 24, hopefully later this year.
Yeah. Did you ever have an opportunity to work with Land Desktop?
Nope. Actually, we switched to Civil 3D in 2011.
Okay.
Prior to that, we used Eagle Point, which now does training.
I remember Eagle Point.
Eagle Point for all of our civil software. So
yeah,
never had the pleasure of working with Land Desktop.
There were some good things and some bad things about Land Desktop. So I used it for about 5 years. Soon I came out of the Air Force. So, but yeah, I didn't have an opportunity to work with Eagle Point, but I heard of it. I knew other companies that were using it. So, and I think, what was the other one? I think Softdesk or something like that.
Yeah, I think we used a little bit. Softdesk also had like an architecture package or something like that. We had a little bit of fiddling around that, and an architecture firm I had worked on it at one point.
Yeah. So what was the very first Autodesk product you used? You remember, when it was and what you were doing at that time?
Well, in high school, like I said, so we used R14.
Yeah.
And it had wall tools, or we had some sort of an add-on. I can't remember. I remember the very first thing that I did with it was we took the old blueprints from in the 40s when the schools were built or whatever, and we turned them into CAD, and the IT guys that were, because they were, back then in 99, 98, somewhere in there, whatever, they were doing diagrams where they were putting their network cables and stuff like that. We were using it for network cabling.
Yeah.
You can see where all their wires are running and stuff like that. And so I actually did that for all the schools in the district.
Oh, wow.
It's just one of my, it was kind of like an independent study as a senior, because there was, there wasn't like a drafting class per se. And stuff like that. It's just like, oh, hey, hey, learn how to use this CAD software, and we'll give you credit for it if you do all the stuff. So why not?
I know we had a drafting class in high school. I graduated in 96. I don't think they had any kind of Autodesk programs. I don't think they had that in my little, of course, I'm in a small little country town out in East Texas. So, graduation class, I'm only like 100 people. But yeah, I don't think it had, but I had my first taste in the Air Force and stuff. So, with the R12 and I think when AutoCAD 2000 came out, there was a big jump in commands. I remember there was a whole bunch of commands that got included in the AutoCAD 2000. And then, but then after that, when I got out of the military, it was Land Desktop. So I had to learn desktop and then desktop. So, I remember when I got out of the military and tried to get hired, and they made me take AutoCAD test, and I didn't get hired. I didn't do very well. And so after that point, I started doing a lot of self-training and stuff. They didn't, they teach me the basics in the Air Force, but we were focused on also surveying and stuff like that. So Plus we had other training going on that's non-software related. But I remember, didn't pass that first exam for the first employee. I forgot what the engineering company was. And so I felt so embarrassed, like, okay, I don't know as much as I thought I did. So I need to go back, start studying and stuff and playing with the software. But yeah. What would, I guess, now you're part of the Expert Elite program. When did you join? If you remember, when did you join the Expert Elite program or get accepted in?
Yeah, I think I got it in the spring session of 2018 because I know in 2017 when I went to AU I was not on the
Yeah.
Expert Elite,
Yeah.
and then I know for sure that I was in 2018. So I'm pretty positive. I think it was like the spring
Yeah.
group that got in 2018.
Yeah. I want to say mine was, let's see here, either 15 or 16. I have to go look and see. Because I remember Tom got in and then he told me about it, and all right, I'm gonna go apply. And the first time I attempted, I didn't get in, but then the second time I got in. So I think I got more involved, because I was already involved with the beta, Autodesk community of feedback and stuff like that. But then I got more involved, and I think that's when I got in. So and got more involved on the user platform, the Auto Civil 3D forums. So I started getting a little more involved in that. But yeah. So what would you say? As an expert lead, how did you train, to be an expert? Did you take classes or were you self-taught? How did you get where you're at now?
So it's kind of actually a mix of all sorts of stuff. So
Yeah.
when I first started off, everything that I learned was self-taught. I did go to some Augie CAD camps before I got out of college.
Yep.
And so, in fact, actually, I remember the week after I graduated in 06, I took that week off or whatever. It was like, hey, I'm graduated. Yeah, I'm going back to work because I already was working where
Yeah.
20 years ago. So I drove over to Detroit for a CAD camp like that next week or whatever, like off or whatever. And my company wasn't big into that type of stuff, so I paid for it myself and did all that or whatever. But I think I went to 3 total. I did 2 in Detroit, I think 1 in Chicago, right around that 2004, 2006 timeframe, somewhere in there. But I do remember when I first started doing CAD, there's times where you have lots of work and you're all super busy, and there's other times where it slows down. Like, man, as a small firm I was at, it's like, okay, you got nothing to go work on, go wash the windows.
Go wash the windows.
Instead of washing the windows, it's like, yeah, I got plenty of stuff to do. So I actually went through in AutoCAD at the time because we were still on Eagle Point, and went through all of, because back then they had the CHM help files. And so you could get an alphabetical list of all of the commands. So I actually went through everything alphabetically and tried out all the little commands and stuff like that. And I picked up a few of them that it's like, oh, that would be really useful for everyday life. But the base command's one of them. You don't think about it, but when you go to insert an XREF and it's off in space or whatever, and you go check somebody changed the base command, it's like, why would they do that? I have no idea. But anyway, so I did that. When we switched to Civil 3D, we did some training with Imagine It. They were the reseller that we had at the time. And then also when we added Plant 3D, we went through some training with the reseller and all that. And then a lot of stuff is the forums. I mean, Augie, I was really big into Augie. Back I think I joined in like 08 or something like that. It might have been earlier that I joined, but they've been through a few iterations over there or whatever. All the forums. I mean, the Autodesk forums, Augie, the Swamp, I like there because I do a lot of programming, so I find that to be helpful. CAD Tutor is the same thing. A lot of the programming stuff, I use those for that. But I did a lot in the forums. That's how I that was one of the things in getting into being an Expert Elite, was I spent a lot of time, especially in AutoCAD forum, just in there answering questions as they came and stuff like that. So, but so pretty much, I think a lot of it was all self-taught, and then I did have the few professional classes. Those are like a week long, and then how much do you really get out of those types of things? It can do this, and then you really got to dig into it.
I think I went to one Augie CAD camp, and it was here locally, and that's where I met Lynn Allen, James Wedding, I forgot somebody else, because James was living here in Dallas. And they had an Autodesk office here in Plano. That's where I met them for the first time. And then so I would actually go after work and then during lunch for these kind of user groups controlled by resellers, like used to be DC CAD, but then it was Applied Technologies. Then I think they got acquired by Great Tech. But these local resellers will have like little user groups after work at 4 o'clock or during lunch, and I would go drive over to their office, and they would have like a 1 hour, free lunch. Come learn some cool tips and tricks, and I would do that for like 4 years. I'll just go to these little events, drive over there. Attend these little 1 day boot camps that user groups these resellers had. They don't do that no more. They don't have these little CAD camps or user groups no more. I guess they didn't see the benefits of it. But and then I was telling everybody else, I just did self-training. I just sat there during lunch and just read blogs and forums, and then just play with the software. Just late at night, just play with the software. What does this button do? All right, let me see what the help menu says. Okay, let me play around with it a little bit. And that's how I learned, just, playing with it, and that's why I tell some of the young millennials, like, hey, during your lunch, eat your sandwich and watch a video, or, play around with the product. And that's how you really can understand it more, So I was just telling a young high school student, he was here yesterday doing like an outreach program, and he's using Fusion 360. And so he's learning as he goes, and he's part of a robotics team captain. And so I was kind of, giving him my advice. And I thought it was pretty cool how deep he was into the software already, learning Fusion 360, building his robotic systems. And so, and it was a lot of us self-taught. He said I was just watching YouTube videos and reading, some stuff on the forum. So he didn't take any classes at all. So I was really impressed how far he built this robotic machine and stuff, which is Fusion 360. I told him, just keep it up, man. 5 years, you'll probably be an expert, teaching the class. So if you keep it up. And he was a young senior in high school. But yeah. You're also part of the, are you on the feedback, with Civil 3D?
Yeah, I'm in with the feedback, the beta group, or whatever you call it. I'm on the Civil 3D one, as well as actually it's infrastructure features.
Yeah.
So but anyway, so I'm on the Civil 3D side as well as the AutoCAD side.
Yeah.
It's a little bit awkward because when you're beta testing, you're not supposed to install side by side. It's like, how can I give advice on both? One of them's ahead of the other.
Yeah. That was always a hard problem, because you have to have a spare computer. If not, sometimes it would corrupt your stuff, But what I started doing is I bought a virtual gaming rig through Shadow, and it's like $30 a month. Now I have this gaming rig, and I can log into my computer at work and then log into this remote virtual gaming PC and install all my beta stuff on there. And I can just flip back and forth. One monitor has the virtual machine, the other one's my computer workstation. So
yeah, that's what I did for a while. I also tried using the Windows Sandbox, because you can do that, but as long as you don't shut down your computer, it'll stay up and it'll stay running. But inevitably you get done installing it, and Windows says, hey, I want to do an update. Guess what? You need to reboot your computer. It's like, no.
Oh man. So and then also, how many times have you been to Autodesk University?
So I was live in 17 and 18.
Mm-hmm.
I was supposed to go in 20, and it got virtualized, so I went virtually.
Yeah.
I also did 21. 21 was virtual as well.
Yeah.
And I attended what I could last year.
Yeah.
With the virtual side of it. I'm hoping to go this year. It's in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So back in November, I had scheduling conflicts. The September worked very well for me. They're all doing school sports. And September is just a bad time. So I'm hoping to make it live this year.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So Dan, I guess if you had control of the wheel with Civil 3D or InfraWorks, what would you change?
If I had absolute
control, if it was possible.
So I think a lot of the old users are going to like me. Autodesk won't, or the stockholders apparently. I would actually stop doing new stuff.
Yeah.
And go fix all the stuff that just doesn't quite work right.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like there's lots of new things that come out, but there's always that one little part of it that isn't quite all the way done.
Yeah.
And when it comes out, and then it takes years and years before they
Yeah.
come back and fix that one little part that,
Yeah.
it's not a deal killer, but it's annoying, or
Yeah.
it's like, man, if you guys could just fix that one little part, this tool would be perfect.
Yeah.
So
I wish
I
they would
think
just
that's
release every other year. At least start there, give it 2 full years to work on something, not release something every single year. But if they did like biannually, every other year release a new version, maybe that would give them more time to focus on the stuff they just created.
Yeah.
But
Or I mean, part of the other issue that I see with it right now is like, so the new corridor changes. It came out in 23.2. If you
yeah,
have 23.1, you don't have those changes. So they've switched now, where instead of coming out with new features just at the new releases, they're coming out at it's not exactly 6 months, it's not exactly quarterly, it's not exactly third, whatever.
yeah,
They're coming out with new pieces and parts in the mid portions of it. It's like, well, maybe work on improving and fixing the ones that came out in the
yeah,
primary, and then the next primary you can dump that stuff into. I
yeah,
mean, not that I mean, like I said, the corridor thing is great. I would love to be able to be using it now. I still have to wait till I'm on 2024 to be able to
yeah,
get to it in production. But it's just that thing of there's little bitty things here and there that's like, hey, if you guys could just stop working on new stuff, get all this other stuff hammered out,
yeah,
it would make that portion so much better. And then then you can take off and work on this all by itself and not have to worry about
yeah.
other stuff.
I mean, I've been on the beta for I think I started in 2010 or 11. But I do more one-on-one. I don't go in the forums of the beta, community feedback. I try to do one-on-one with the development managers. But you have the wish list, but I feel like they don't pay attention to the wish list, and they keep producing new things like, I wasn't even on the wish list. Why did you create this feature? When there's so many things on the wish list that's been voted on, and that's kind of sometimes I get annoyed by it. Like, there's 10 things that's been sitting there forever, and you say you're going to focus on it, but you don't. So
Yeah. Well, I know they have the ideas for them, and I mean, I've been on that side of it. Looking at I've added things to the ideas for them for Civil 3D. I've seen things that were added that the status. I've actually seen things that they've changed the status on. It's like going from, hey, this is being considered, to, hey, we're going to implement this, and
yeah,
like that. And their new Trello board, I don't know how long they're going to stick with it, because it looked like one of the other groups had switched to Trello, and then they've moved on to something else now that's better than Trello for maintaining that or whatever. But I like that the Civil 3D group is doing that. You can see their public roadmap, and what they're working on right now, what has been implemented recently.
yeah,
And then they put things up there for, it's basically a, hey, is this really a good idea? And
yeah,
if you're on there, it's like, every chance I get, I really wish that there was a better notification system when they add stuff.
yeah,
But I check it once a month or something like that. It's like, oh, this looks like it's new,
yeah,
and if I want to vote for it, I'll vote for it. If I've already voted for it, it tells me I voted for it. So
yeah,
it's like, and I don't just go in there for the things that I want.
yeah,
I look at it, it's like, I could see where if somebody was doing that, it would be helpful for them. So I vote for that too, because
yeah,
the software's not just about what I want.
yeah,
It doesn't do anybody any good if it's got to work
yeah.
for.
It's catering to just one industry, one type of project.
Oh yeah, man, we can only work on feature line and surfaces, because that's all I do is site design. I don't do anything with roads or pipes or whatever. It's like, no, yeah, I get everything.
Yeah. Well, I know on the InfoWorks side, I teach InfoWorks and with my company, and I've gotten frustrated because they feel like they've been focused on transportation for the last 5 years, and they don't focus on any kind of site tools. And I'm like, come on, guys, we've been doing all these component roads and bridges and stuff, but not really any site tools. And that's what we need, is some site tools, grading tools on InfoWorks, and there's a lot of stuff that they had going, to then they shelved it for 5 years. Now they're slowly trying to get back. But, for 5 years, it's just bridges and component roads, constantly, on the InfoWorks side. So I'm hoping they'll come back and start doing more site tools and stuff, because that's what we drastically need now. We got a lot of road tools in InfoWorks, and then a lot of bridge tools and hydraulic tools, but need a lot more site tools and stuff. And parking, now they got the parking tool release. So and but yeah, it's still got ways to go on the InfoWorks side. So, um, but I guess, what would you want to share with your users if you had a tip? What's one simple tool you could, advise you to have for these young users using Civil 3D or AutoCAD, or even InfoWorks or vehicle tracking? I don't know if you use vehicle tracking.
I use vehicle tracking. I think the biggest thing I got on vehicle tracking is go in and set up your layers ahead of time.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of options, but I can't remember what it is, but we had in our installation process the steps that
Yeah.
you install software, you go in and you change the settings so that it's not using. I think I don't remember exactly what it was, but it had to do with the layering or something like that.
Yeah.
That's not my tip. My tip is more towards being in site civil. So we work on a lot of site plans, a lot of grading, those types of things. And I think the biggest thing that I found that a lot of people could use help with, or at least understand better, is when you're working with surfaces, is how to break them apart
Yeah.
and make them so they're manageable.
Yeah.
Especially when you're working on a really big site.
Yeah.
Breaking it into smaller areas, you can always, you can have as many small areas as you want, put them all together in one surface when you're done, and use that for your overall. But if they're in smaller areas, there's advantages to it. If you have getting a time crunch and someone else has got to help, they can be working in a separate file, that type of thing. But the big thing is when you're working with surfaces, keep the things that you're using to build the surfaces together. So don't create a surface that's got feature line information in it and corridor information in it and surfaces and contours. If you're going to create a surface that's made from contours, all it should be in it are contours. If you're using corridors, just corridors. If you're going to create something with feature lines, just that. And then your ultimate surface might just be, all it should be, hopefully at that point, is pasted surfaces. Because when you start mixing pieces and parts and types, then you have to make a change.
Yeah.
You come back and try to figure out, well, what part contributed to this part to fix it. And it's so much easier going down the road when it's isolated like that. It's just easier to figure out what you got going on.
Yeah. I typically like, when I'm doing big subdivisions, I'll split up the corridor in one model in one drawing, but I got the lot grading in another drawing, because if you put them all together, you're gonna have a massive surface, a massive information in there, feature lines, grading groups, and 2D lines and corridors and stuff. So I try to always tell people, like, try to break that up. That way somebody can focus on lot grading when somebody's doing the corridor.
Yeah, and that thing is, if it goes corrupt, you lose the whole thing.
Yeah.
So by keeping it separate, that helps as well too. So
yeah. Definitely. I had somebody took that advice, but they took it way too far, where they split the corridor I think they had 100 CAD files. For the street design of a corridor. I'm like, whoa. So I think what they did is they split the corridor so it fit on every sheet, and it's just 900 foot or 1,000 foot length of corridor. And so every drawing was only 1,000 foot.
That's like going back to like 1996, 95, the way they used to do stuff way back then.
Yeah. And I was like, what? It was like, I was so shocked. They go, oh, it's much smaller files, but that's a lot of data referencing going on there, because you have data reference all these files together. So that's a lot of data referencing going on. I've seen drawings where I was helping somebody with tech support. They had 50 XREFs. 50. I counted them. It was an architectural drawing. I'm like, okay, you can't like combine some of these floors into blocks, make a couple a couple of the rooms into one unit, another section, another wing or something, or one for the whole floor of the building. No, every drawing was one separate room, and they were attaching. What? It's like, okay. So that's why it took 8 minutes to open a drawing. I put the timer on it. It took them 8 minutes to open a file. Like, okay, this is way too much. And I gave them advice, but they were already like midway through the project. They couldn't go backwards, that's probably the record I've seen is 100 CAD drawings and 50 XREFs. So
and I think that's the thing people look at is like, oh, the file size is small, so it'll load fast, but there's a certain amount of overhead with every single file. So even super small, it still takes X amount of time for it to load in. So you might be making your file small, but you're still making the amount of time it takes to load stuff in longer.
Yeah, exactly. Or, other advice I tell people is, hey, when you're doing plan and profile, don't put all the drawing tabs in one drawing. Go down and open up a drawing. There's like 20 tabs in the drawing because it's all the profiles of the street. I'm like, guys, that's a lot of viewports that, Civil 3D is having to look at. It's a lot of annotation and stuff. So try to break that up. Don't have 10, 20, 30 tabs of the profile in one drawing. So,
yeah. And not that I'm condoning that behavior, but 2023 has had some improvements
yeah.
on regenerating things that are not in the current viewport.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't like doing multiple tabs in a file either. It goes back to the same thing. You can only have one person working on it, and if it crashes, you lose everything. So,
Yeah.
trying to keep stuff separated, but not, you don't want to isolate it too much, but at the same
Yeah.
time, do something reasonable.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So what other Autodesk products are you currently using? Is it strictly AutoCAD and Civil 3D, or are you using anything else at the office?
At the office, I am using strictly Civil 3D.
Mhm.
I've used, I mean, really, to be honest, Civil 3D being built on AutoCAD, built on Map,
Yeah.
you get those tools in there. So,
Yeah.
there's some tools that you use, but, I don't go into depth,
Yeah.
Map. My limitations is Map import, Map export.
Yeah.
Maybe that's about it. But, everything's built on AutoCAD. So you're
Yeah.
using line, circle, rectangle,
Yeah.
all those regular tools or whatever it is. But at the same time, it's like you don't have it separately installed.
Yeah.
It's all built on top of it. So
Yeah. Yeah. And some companies, they have like every product. They're using Bentley for some of the parts of the design, then back to Civil 3D, and then they're using, Carlson for some of the survey stuff. And then they're using other third-party applications that, they're using bits and pieces of different company software to have an end product, And so a good example is, pre-development, you might use Bentley Site Ops or Site Designer just to lay something out, bring it back to Civil 3D, you do design. But then at the very beginning, even before that, while you're waiting for the survey, somebody's using Carlson to bring in the survey data. I used to use Carlson back in the day, and bringing all that data in, do the platting and stuff like that, and then share that to the Civil team because it sits on top of Civil 3D. And then somebody might be pushing that into InfoWorks to do 3D modeling, and then that goes into other third party 3D modeling software like Lumion, Twinmotion, Inkscape, pushing maybe some of the stuff to Revit, 3D modeling and stuff like that. And then that stuff gets pushed into like hydraulic tools. I'm going to push this into StormCAD or Innovize or other hydraulic software, SSA or stuff like that. So you're using so many different products and then you're using like Nearmap for area, bringing in, GIS or Esri to bring in GIS, data and stuff like that. So yeah, some companies they have, I think, everything.
Well, when you word it that way, yes, that is the case. I specifically only use Civil 3D. It's like we've got, it's like we've got our structure guys. They're all doing stuff in Revit, sending us the exports and all that. And we use ProjectWise for the majority of our projects, but we're looking into Autodesk Construction Cloud, desktop connector and all that. We have a couple projects that we're testing out in those. It does seem like things are a little bit simpler because you don't have you don't have the back and forth because Revit doesn't play nice with ProjectWise and Autodesk Autodesk products and Bentley products. They get along only to a certain point.
Yeah.
It's like you can't make it work. But so I know I wanted to use InfoWorks for a long time. I see the value in it as a tool for conceptual design. But it was kind of one of those things where I'm not involved in the process for winning work. So it's hard to sell something when I don't really know what they need, so I can't sit there and do it because and then the people that are involved in that, they don't want to sit there and take the time to learn the software. It is what it is.
And I would have to say InfoWorks is probably one of those super easy software to learn. It's in the same level as probably even easier than probably SketchUp. SketchUp is a very user-friendly software, but InfoWorks is super easy, a lot more steady than Civil 3D and stuff. Very rarely do I see it crash. And you could probably learn that product, fully learn it in 3 months, fully learn it really good and be pretty proficient in it. And I've done a lot of 3D models where I met developers and, hey, I did some site plans for them. So, hey, they're trying to figure out, oh, should I do this in SketchUp or do this in a 3D SketchUp with a landscape guard? Now I'll put a 3D model together, and within like 2 hours, I built a 3D model of the whole site for him. And then so he took that to a city council or city zoning meeting and said, hey, this is what we're proposing. This is not the finished product. Just give a general idea of what we're going to look to develop, yeah, I'll do it all the time. Sometimes I'll do some simple culvert analysis for hydraulics. I'll do some watershed analysis. I'll use InfoWorks all the time to bring in contours. Use their software data to bring in existing contour data and bring it into a site. And sometimes I built like roundabouts and then bring it back in this civil 3D. Then I've already started something. Now it brings it as a corridor, and I can start tweaking it and modify it. If I want to just kind of save some time really, really quick and get something quick and dirty in there. Yeah, it's not a, I would say only maybe 5% of engineers that I've met have used it. So it's, yeah.
I know one project that I did, they were trying to evaluate some different things order with some storm sewer.
Yeah.
And I knew there was a big hill that they have to go through and it wasn't going to work. So I used the model builder to build it. And then I tried to push the storm sewer through. I'm like, yeah, if you guys do this, you're going to be like 35 foot deep here. And they're like, no, we can't do that. It's like, well, there you go. That type of situation, I mean, that's like 15, 20, I mean, it's not even an hour worth of work to do that. Because all you're doing is just, you get your model built. That's the majority of the time you lay out a pipe.
Yeah.
So it didn't need to be exact. It just needed to, hey, you're going to be really deep at this point, and it's probably not an idea to do.
Yeah, exactly. So during your free time, let's go kind of switch gears here. What do you do outside of work for fun? A lot of my members are part of Boy Scouts or something with their kids, part of church groups, ministries, and just, what outside of work do you do for fun? Are you part of any kind of committees or groups, organizations, locally, or even online that's not related to Autodesk or engineering? What do you do for free? And what's some of the hobbies you do?
Oh, let's see. So the biggest hobby is I have 3 kids that are all playing travel soccer right now.
There you go.
They start up next week, but yeah, so we've got, everybody's going every which way. That's the majority of my free time. I'm also, I'm on our church worship team. So, I don't play every week, but when I do, I got to practice during the week, stuff like that. But then I do some online gaming, mostly racing on iRacing. That's kind of my big thing. We do that a couple nights a week. We have a big group out of Victoria, British Columbia that I race with. So it's really late at night too. It's like 10 o'clock our time, it's 7 o'clock their time or something like that. So we do that a couple nights a week. But,
I see you got 2 electric guitars. Is that another little hobby, or is that just for show?
Well, no. So so that's my bass on that side, and then that's my electric. So I play those in the church band. My son plays drums, so that's kind of cool when we actually get scheduled the same week together. It doesn't happen very often because during the week, people somewhere, they don't want to have 2 people missing from practice, so they try to alternate us, and he can run one of the kids somewhere. But he's actually joining the Army. He's going off to boot camp this summer, so that's
cool.
Kind of fun. He's not going full in the Army. He's going to reserves.
Okay.
Got to go through boot camp and all that fun stuff, and then 2 weeks a year, 1 week in a month or whatever. So
weekend warriors.
He's going as a combat engineer.
Combat engineer. Okay.
So it's like, I think I have an inkling what that actually means, but it says engineer, and I'm like, hey, that's cool. I'm an engineer. So. Combat
engineer. I wonder if that's the group, that kind of disaster preparedness. You go in, set up military bases, during wartime situations and stuff like that, protect the base while the engineers may have gotten attacked, or you're setting up new base, I guess, setting up bridges and stuff like that. So there were so many different engineering groups when I was in the Air Force. I was in the engineering squadron, but I was at a Top Gun base. But there was another elite group of civil engineers where they were just constantly training 24/7. My buddy that I went to boot camp. That's where he went. It was called Red Horse. And then there's another group that's, does something else too. So there's so many different groups there in engineering. So I wonder if that's, what he's joining. So, but it'll be an experience. I think you'll enjoy. I can't speak for the Army, but I know it was a great experience for the Air Force. So all the combat training, real world scenarios we had, and then biological, chemical welfare training. Yeah, so that was something I'll never forget, the training. And sometimes we actually participated. One time I participated in an international competition with other 600 countries when we did like world uh, um, competition, and then we just go different scenarios out, and you're trying to do all this stuff, buddy care. There's biological weapons going on. Somebody just blew up the base, and you're trying to take care of all these different things and trying to see who does the best part during during these war situations and stuff. And that was really fun, So it was a memorable moment for that. I think it was like an all-day or 2-day event. So competing with these countries, and like, oh, the airlines. So the airport just got bombed. You got to go fix the airport, do this, go measure, do a survey. Oh, your buddy just got shot at the same time. You're like, go take care of your buddy. You're, dragging him, putting him on his shoulder, buddy care and stuff like that. So, it was a very entertaining, time for those two things in this. So, and the DoD training was very interesting too. But, I'll never forget those 4 years. It was a really good time. So I think he'll enjoy it. He'll remember some of this stuff, even for, a reservist and stuff like that. I even thought about going back and being a reservist, but now I'm a little too old. So, but yeah, it was a good time. So, somebody else speaking, when I saw those guitars, I think it was John Mayo. He was big in the, guitars and stuff and music when I interviewed him. So I don't know if you saw the video, but he's big into guitars and stuff. So I think his more acoustic guitars and stuff. So
yeah, I've got an acoustic. I just don't have enough stands. It's like we had my daughter's picking up bass, so we actually I took her to a bass lesson the other night, so I had that out, and I'm trying to learn. I've got to play next weekend, so there's some new songs or whatever. I got to try to learn it. So it's like, hey,
I tried for 6 months. I bought an electric guitar on Craigslist one time, and all the amps and stuff, and tried to learn Metallica, but I think I got frustrated. I try to learn the hard part fast, first, not the easy part. So it just wasn't for me. I ended up selling it back after 6 months, but I had a good time learning it. I knew how to read it, all the notes and stuff. Just once I figured out where those notes were on the strings and stuff, but I just wasn't that great at it. So, but when I see that bass, I think about Anastasia, Metallica, Anastasia Pulling Teeth. You ever seen the video?
No, I don't think I've seen
solo. Go on YouTube and go pull up, watch. That's probably the greatest bass solo I've ever seen. It's Metallica, Anastasia Pulling Teeth, and a guy does like a 4-minute solo on the bass guitar, just goes nuts on the bass guitar. Complete solo. Nobody else plays until the very end, so he's just going at it, So, but yeah, where do you think Autodesk will be in 5-10 years? Where do you think it's going to be down the road? 3D, basically civil 3D, AutoCAD and InfoWorks. Where do you think it's going to be? Well, we know what it's going to be next year because we're on the beta, but 5-10 years.
I think I want to think that, coming down the line, digital twins becoming bigger and bigger, doing modeling and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I just think it's going to continue to head that way.
Yeah.
Less and less doing PDF plot sets and stuff like that, more and more generating models. And I think that's where a lot of the focus is going. I mean, obviously works a lot. It works pretty much 100% 3D.
Yeah.
They have the ground forge, or geo grading optimization now. Mm-hmm. So that obviously is all grading focused and model focused or whatever. And I really kind of see in 5 to 10 years, contractors aren't going to be getting sets of plans from anybody anymore. They're going to be getting models, and those models are going to need to be accurate. They're going to be created quickly. I mean, I kind of feel like right now I spend way too much time trying to get my model exactly correct, and you're going to keep working on tools that are just going to make that faster and quicker to get done.
I think it's going to go there, but it's going to be up to getting the contractors up to speed. They're actually, behind us. They're even slower than us. They're still using PDFs and old CAD files, so it's getting the contractors up to speed on their technology. The big companies, they're using those, GPS construction machines and stuff, but lot of the older contractors are old school, so it's really getting them educated on latest technology. And so I think that's going to be the hang up, is getting them caught up, not the civil guys, but it's actually going to be the contractors. So and I'm doing some training right now for some construction guys in Georgia. And so they want to learn how to bring some of that data right into their machines and stuff for machine grading. So but yeah, I think in 5-10 years, I'm going to see where you're really not installing anything. It's just going to be browser based. You're just logging into Civil 3D or InfraWorks, and you're not installing anything. You're running it straight through the internet. So
that would be nice if it could be streamlined enough to be, I don't want to put it, not laggy. I mean, if they can get it, I mean, I could see that being pretty smooth flowing and everything like that, if they can get it to that point.
Yeah, if they can get to that point, and I wish they would just, like, at that point, it'd be cool to just, now I can just switch between any product. I can switch from InfraWorks with like a workspace button, like, all right, say switch over to InfraWorks, push a button, switch over to vehicle tracking, and switch over to Revit, and you're just pushing a button to switch applications, and then you can just switch back and forth when you're uploading and sharing and syncing files and stuff. So yeah, it would be cool. You're really going to be based on internet speeds too, so you better have some good, most of the businesses have really fast internet, but if you're working from home, you got to have really good fast internet. I think if you're working completely out of the browser. So but I think it might go there, where everything just internet based, browser based. You're not installing nothing, you're buying a product, you're logging in already, and now you're strictly working on the cloud. Nothing's being installed in your computer. So now you don't have to rely too much on powerful laptops and stuff. So really, it won't be hardware heavy, so
yeah. And I think that would be the advantage that I was basically talking about in regards to, they can get it and it's not laggy. Because I mean, that's the problem is you're doing it on your desktop, it's limited by the hardware that you've got in place, and kind of if it's out there in a browser, not using that hardware as much. They got to figure out a way to make it not use the hardware to be able to use it in with. So that's where they'll have to streamline the deep down coding stuff to get that stuff to even work, where it's not going to require the hardware.
Next question: what's your favorite moment you can think about with the Expert Elite program? We have our own summit at AU, or what would be I guess the most memorable moment if you attended any of those?
Well, the thing that I like the best out of it, I like the one-on-one time with the product managers for the different software. Because I actually feel like you're sitting around a table with the person that's the product manager for that. I feel it gives you that direct line, one-on-one voice. It's even closer to what you got when you're working through the beta programs and stuff like that, because you're sitting at that table with that person. And it's a little bit, it's a little bit harder. You sit there, you say, this is an issue, I have it, and they're seeing your face and your expressions and all that. And I hope that it somehow, how do you want to put it? It spills over to them so that they can see your emotion and how you feel about it, and they have sympathy for you and want to actually help you.
That's always fun, but sometimes at this point I'm like, why aren't you writing this down? I've been in a couple of tables right in front of them. They're just sitting there talking to everybody. Like, are you writing this down? So like, there's no pen and paper. They're just listening. Like, maybe you want to write this down. So, but no, those are good moments that we've had with the Expert Elite program. They used to have, I don't know if you remember back, there used to be an AutoCAD mentor program. I don't know if you ever took part of that. There was another group called the AutoCAD Mentor Program. I was in there for like a year or two. I know Frank was in there. There was a few civil guys in there in the AutoCAD Mentor Program. So it only lasted like 4 years, I think. So it's a completely separate program. And then there used to be like an InfraWorks ambassador program. There was a bunch of programs that's been around, and then they kind of just disappear, or they get rebranded, so and merge into something else. So now We have the Autodesk community conversations. We have the Autodesk, what's the other one? Autodesk community voices. And then AutoCAD, the Autodesk group network. And then they're about to open up the Autodesk, and which is something I've been pushing for like 4 years, just talking to different development teams, the Autodesk gallery. So they're going to have like an Autodesk gallery where you can, I guess, upload photos of events and stuff like that. And they can have just a picture website where you're just uploading pictures and watch pictures. So I told them that'd be cool, because then people, when they go to AU, people can upload their photos of the event and they just have a gallery. You can see everybody's gallery of the events, user group events, any kind of network events related to Autodesk. You can just upload photos, and of course somebody's got to go through and make sure they're okay. But I think it'd be cool to see people's events from across the world that's having networking events, user group events, Expert Elite summits, inside the factory. All this stuff, and they're uploading those kind of photos of what's happening there. So I thought it'd be cool. It's kind of like a Facebook, or not really like a Facebook. It's just pictures. You don't vote or anything on it. You just have uploading, looking pictures of people having fun at events. So that's something I've been pushing for like years.
Yeah, I could see that being helpful too, because if you sit there and you have a place where people can post pictures of these different events, maybe somebody that's new to it would be more more willing to, hey, I'm going to go ahead and do it, because they've seen what it looks like.
Yeah.
It takes away that little bit of the unknown, because you can see from everybody's point of view what it was that you're going to be doing.
Yeah.
So I could see an advantage to that too.
Yeah. I don't know when they're going to open it, but they've been talking about it already. They've mentioned it on some of the emails and webinars and stuff. So I think I don't know if I was the only one pushing it, but I think surely other people were pushing it, but I thought it'd be a great idea. That way I can upload photos of my user group events that I host, since I host training events and stuff like that, where I invite expert elites like yourself and other Autodesk Expert Elite members to come in and teach for a day. So I'm probably doing that this year. I'm going to actually have an event where I'm going to invite a bunch of expert elites come in and teach for an all-day training event. But posting those pictures, it kind of people are like, hey, that looks like a fun event. Maybe I should go to those events, a fun group, like they're having fun, but they're learning at the same time. So, but yeah. So what is your favorite movie, for our other users, or, what's your favorite movie?
Man, my favorite movie. Oh,
one maybe you've probably watched the most.
Well, that depends on, different things or whatever. It's like, you go through a spurt where it's like every time you have a free shot or whatever, you play Canadian Bacon or something like that.
That's an old one, classic.
Yeah. I'm a big fan. I'm a big sci-fi guy. So, I pretty much, I don't really know that I have, well, I guess out of all the Star Wars movies, like I really like, either Rogue One or Star Wars or Episode 4. Those are like the two, maybe Episode 6, depending, those are kind of the cool ones. I'm a big Trekkie, so I've got all of those movies and that type of whatever. So I don't really know that I have necessarily like a favorite one. Yeah. The problem I have is I like all these movies and my wife doesn't. So if she goes out of town, it's like, well, what movie do I have to watch? Do I want to watch Transformers? Do I want to watch Star Trek? Star Wars, Indiana Jones? All these action. I like action movies, so that type of thing, sci-fi and action. I think those are the big ones I like. So it's hard for me to sit there and say I've got one that's my favorite. Like if you're saying, of these two, which one's your favorite? I could probably do that, but it's like Top Gun or Maverick. I like Maverick better. It just the nostalgia part of it adds to it.
Yeah. And you can see I'm a big Star Wars guy, so I got all these Stormtrooper helmets all down here, and then on the corner I got a whole bunch of Stormtrooper mugs and action figures to the corner over here. My office, everywhere you look, there's all kinds of posters of Stormtroopers. So I'm big into the Stormtroopers and stuff. So I'm trying to collect all the helmets, all the Stormtrooper helmets. So even custom ones made. I'd probably say my favorite movie is Avatar. I think that was mind blowing just when that came out, the very first Avatar. When I saw it, the IMAX in 3D, it was amazing. It's why it's still the biggest blockbuster of all time, making I think almost $3 billion. I do love Star Trek and Star Wars and Transformers. I grew up watching Transformers as a kid, so I'm big into that. but I also collect comics. I do collect comic books. So as a kid, it started at 10. I collected comics, and I have all my comic books from when I was 10. So I have a huge selection. Every now and then I go to comic book store and collect comic books and stuff. So something I always did. So um, my parents couldn't get me to read when I was really, really small. And so, or I hated reading. So that's how they got me to reading. Even when I was 10, they're like, I hate reading, coming home. And once you read comics, then, that's what got me into reading some more, is reading comic books and stuff. So, and also got me into art. I started drawing a lot of stuff when I was 10, 12, got me into art. But that's kind of my hobby, is collecting comic books. I'm a big, big Notre Dame fan. So what is your sport? What's your favorite sport that you enjoy watching?
My favorite sport that I enjoy watching is NASCAR. So
NASCAR?
yeah, it really helped moving down here to Charlotte because that's like it's the central hub
That's
of
the
all
number
of it.
one sport.
So, yeah, so I it's kind of interesting. I've had my drivers, big Dale Earnhardt, Dale Jr. fan.
Yeah.
That translated over to Bowman and took over. But during the pandemic, it was kind of interesting because when they shut everything down, a lot of the NASCAR drivers, they went on to like Twitch and YouTube and did streaming of iRacing stuff.
Yeah.
Or whatever. So through that, I was just scanning through some channels one day or whatever and came across one of them, and it was kind of interesting because like at the very end of the stream or whatever, he did a little prayer or whatever, and then he shut down or whatever. That's kind of interesting. So I went back to the next one that he was doing, and he ended the same way or whatever. So so I became a big fan of Justin Allgaier through that.
Yeah.
Actually, during the pandemic, we had a fan race, and he actually raced with a bunch of us online.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool.
That would be cool if all those racers during a pandemic just jumped on like Need for Speed Live, and they're racing live on Need for Speed, or those video games, and you're watching them on Twitch racing digitally. That would have been pretty funny. So but even doing it through VR. So I was just watching actually right now there's racing going on. I was watching Formula One earlier. I think this is right now. It's
we got the Rolex 24.
Yeah, Rolex 24. Yeah, that's what I'm watching. Yeah, on Peacock. Yeah, that's what I have on TV right now. So and so every now and then I'll watch some of the racing, more of the Formula One than than the others. I'll watch Formula One, or what's the other one? Formula One for electrical.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll probably watch that than more than NASCAR. So
yeah, I've been getting into a lot more because I follow a lot of people on Twitter. I mean, my stream's pretty much on Twitter. It's like racing related stuff, and then it's CAD related stuff, and then music related stuff. So it's like it's kind of just those three topics or whatever, pretty much or whatever. But I follow several of the guys or whatever, and one of the guys I follow, Matt Weaver. He's big into the short track stuff and all that or whatever, and so it's kind of interesting because normally you just watch the race on Sunday afternoon or whatever it is on NASCAR or whatever. But then I'm sitting there on my phone watching because people are giving updates to all these other types of racing, dirt racing, World of Outlaws, stuff like that or whatever. I'm sitting, it's like nothing else to do. Or I'll pull out my phone. Oh, look, there's a race going on right now. So I'm sitting there or whatever to get race updates, and it's like I don't even follow these guys, but it's still it's interesting. Sit there and follow these races. It's like I wonder who this how they're gonna do and stuff like that. So
I watch Notre Dame sports pretty religiously. So I never miss a Notre Dame football game. I watch the women's basketball and soccer. I watch the men's basketball, the men's, if it's on TV, the men's hockey and lacrosse. So pretty much I support the men and women's on all the sports. The one that you'd never see on TV is baseball. I guess their baseball is really terrible. So I never see them on TV. But I definitely love, watching, even though I didn't go to Notre Dame, it was just something I was a big fan since I was 10 years old, living out in the country, because, they have their own broadcast channel. So, they're always on TV, so you never miss them. So I'm a big, big Notre Dame fan. I'm also a Longhorn fan, so I got to root for at least a Texas team. So I do root for the Longhorns. So I don't watch NBA. I used to watch a lot of NFL, but not anymore. I'm more of a college football guy. And it's really this. It's just college football that I watch a lot of. So and let's see what else. Big sci-fi and stuff like that. So, but during my spare time, I'm doing a lot of trying to learn new products, not just Autodesk products. I try to learn 3D modeling products and drone technology and all that stuff. And, I don't like to be bored, so I'm always trying to learn something new. And so And I think that's, you know, beneficial to people learn new things, not get complacent, unless you're really trying to be a master of that one product and stuff like that. So, I try to stay focused on InfoWorks, vehicle tracking, recap. I dabble with Navisworks, but definitely no expert. I'm more of a beginner. So on Navisworks, I know how to bring the stuff in. I know how to do the class detection and stuff like that, but that's probably the limit of my extensive knowledge on Navisworks is I can't do all that construction phasing stuff and timing and cost estimating and stuff. But another one I really want to learn, but just never had time. I dabbled with was Revit, but just don't have time to learn Revit. So I wanted to learn that. I dabbled with 3ds Max. I think that one is really hard to learn to me. It's not very user friendly because it's just a bunch of pull downs underneath the pull down underneath the pull down. 3ds Max to me, I thought it was a hard class. I took one class at AU and I thought it was a hard class to learn. Yes. So I would say Civil 3D or 3ds Max is number one of those two, the hardest one to learn, then probably Revit, and the rest are probably much easier. I can't speak for other like Fusion or Inventor or Maya. What's some other products are really popular. That's pretty much it in our industry. Those are the main products in our industry. I don't think there's any other ones that most people are using. So do your company dabble with drones and technology and LiDAR stuff?
I think that I want to say that they do have a couple of survey crews.
Yeah.
That's the HDR is a global company. I mean, we've got like 11,000 employees. So it's like,
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's like, I really don't know what all we do everywhere, but I have heard, I do know that they do use LiDAR. And so I'm not sure. I'm pretty positive I've heard them discuss the fact that they've got a few drones and a few of the different machines, the site setup or whatever it is. But my old company, they started to get into that. It is quite interesting how you get this point cloud and the various softwares that they have out there that you can use to actually visualize that point cloud and either reduce it into something that you can actually use in CAD. Which I kind of always look at the advantage you go out there with you got this device and you're shooting a point cloud is you can go out there and just go through and get it, come back in the office, and if you miss the point or miss something, you just open up the point cloud again and go grab it.
Yeah.
With traditional surveying, if you miss something, you got to go back out in the field and get it. And it's like, it's a trade-off. It's like, yeah, you can fly through there and get it done, and you can come back in the office. And maybe it's more efficient to do it that way. It's definitely more efficient in the long run because you've got the data right there. How you're storing and all that. That's beside the point. But it comes down to it's like, oh, hey, I know there's a manhole here. I can see it on Google Street View, but it's not in the topo. You just open up the point cloud. It's like, put the point there, export it back to CAD, and you've got your point that you need. So
I think the only thing they have to deal with is now the survey data is much bigger, much larger. When you get a survey from the survey guides, it's a couple of megabytes. Now you're 30, 50, 80 megabytes for the same project. So,
and it just depends on how much they pare it down. Because there's people settings you get LiDAR filters. There's one set of settings you use for large model LiDAR and others for smaller areas because otherwise your drawing is super small and all that stuff. And it's the same thing with the point clouds. Is how much do you really need to get what you need to
how much filter are you going to do? You're doing 1 inch, 1 millimeter, filtering or the classification and stuff like that. So, and I'm sure they're probably doing it. I don't know what software they're doing, but you can do it in a recap. But yeah, I had somebody doing it was like, I think it was like 300 megabytes. It was huge. It was a LiDAR surface. Like, look, if you're not using all this, you need to crop this out. You don't need to see the whole model and especially if it's in phases, you don't need to see phase 2 through 5 in your project. If you're just working on, say, phase 1, yes, you probably do it for preliminary earthwork and stuff, but you don't need it for phase 1. You crop that out or something, you don't need to download all of it, So, just things like that. I've seen, clients dealing with this large project with large LiDAR data and stuff like that. So, and then also where, how it creates the contours are really jagged, it looks really, really weird and stuff. So people are like, I hate where it looks because now it just looks weird when you're doing grading groups and you're trying to tie it down to grading, and then you got a jagged line representing that contour. And so they're so accustomed to seeing smooth contours for survey data, not the jagged lines. And I'd tell them like, well, you probably doesn't really look like that. That's probably actually how it looks in the real world. That elevation is not a smooth curve, so it's changing. So, but yeah. But no, that's kind of all the questions I had. I mean, I appreciate you coming, spending an hour with me today. And we've probably interviewed now 12, 15 Expert Elite members and stuff. So I'm going to keep expanding now internationally. We had one guy from Turkey. We had Sean from the UK. I think I got another guy from Turkey who wants to get interviewed and stuff. So, it's a good way to get people to know who you are, what you do for fun, and what your journey's been like, using the Autodesk products from A to B and stuff. So everybody's path can be completely different. Everybody's path and journey has been completely different. So, learning the software and, but cool. I mean, I appreciate your time, and if somebody wants to follow you on social media or LinkedIn or something, can they follow you on one of their, where they can find you and maybe reach out some questions?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. I don't remember. I mean, it's I think it's under Christopher Cowgill. It's on LinkedIn. So
Okay.
I mean, you probably do a search or whatever.
Yeah.
My avatar is my face.
Okay.
I try to do that with a lot of the social media, because you get this little bit of thing and you can't see who it is. It's like, if you can see my face,
Yeah.
you're gonna know that's the right page, hopefully.
Yeah.
And then I'm on Twitter. I'm TMIBO3 on Twitter.
Okay.
Which is
Yep.
obviously all part of my email address or whatever.
Yep.
But I've kind of gotten big into that. My license
Yeah.
plate TMIBO3. My Twitch is TMIBO3. I race it all. It's like, that's kind of my thing.
And if they want to reach out to you, like message you on the Autodesk forums, what is your name? Is it just your name on the forums?
Yeah, I'm one of the ancient users that actually had their name was their ID, not their email address or some random group of numbers.
Yeah.
So it's under Chris Cowgill. So
okay.
It's Chris Cowgill 7373 is my username over
there. Okay. Yeah, that's way if somebody wants to send you a private message on the forums, Autodesk forums, they can.
So, yeah, I'm pretty active in the Civil 3D one. I'm not as active as I would like to be in the AutoCAD forum.
Yeah.
But I try to do what I can, at least on the Civil 3D side. You only have so many hours in the day. It's like, it can't be.
Yeah, I mean, you got to, your job number one is your priority, paying the bills. So you got to do that job. I try to do mine through, I probably don't go on the forums that much, hardly ever now, but I do it through my user group platform. So my members will post questions on there and I help them through there on our user group platform. So I'm sure you've heard of it, the DFW BIM infrastructure user group. So, we have getting close to 300 members now, getting close. And we have members in there, I post tips and tricks on there. And that way they can watch a video or read a blog post from me or some of the Revit experts like Danya and Rena. But we got a lot of CAD managers on there posting and sharing tips and tricks. And we have like 4 webinars lined up next month. So, even our members will actually participate and create webinars for the user group and stuff like that. So, so that's always fun. I'm on there every day, just networking with people, sharing ideas. We chit chat about different products, not even just Autodesk product, but Bentley, third-party applications, what's helping companies, because I use a lot of Autodesk product, but I'm willing to use other products to get me done, to be more efficient in the design. So, but definitely check out our user group. We have a website also, the dfwbiug.com, and there I post events. It's usually where I post events. If I'm going to host an event, I'll post it on there. You can see who the speakers at. I think we've had a total of 50 different speakers at my events and stuff. And you may have even seen your company on there, because if your office is local in Texas, I want to say your company has been to my events, HDR.
We've got an office in Dallas, one in
San Diego. So there's a lot of companies that have been to our events, even survey companies and architectural companies too. So since we had Revit classes going on too. But all right, man, I appreciate you coming on, and thanks for your time, and keep up all the great stuff you've been doing with Autodesk. And hopefully the users enjoyed your tip about the services and stuff. So, and I appreciate your time, and have a good weekend.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, man. Later. Thanks.